Greetings. This is Doc Ock here, coming to you live and direct from Black Facts Headquarters Central with the latest news on Queen Calafia. In fact, the legend of Queen Calafia will be our subject for the rest of this week. And because it's going to take that long just to explain the legend of Queen Calafia. This can't be done in, well, I could do it in 10 minutes, but it really wouldn't do her legend any kind of justice. And that's something we're all concerned about these days, with justice. So without further ado, let's go ahead and do our proverb of the day. Proverb of the day is, a man who continually laments is not heeded. A man who continually laments is not heeded. And that is a proverb from the nation of Kenya, the modern day nation of Kenya. Poem for today, it's called The New Deal, and it's coming out of this book here. What's the name of it again? So Far, So Good. How can I forget that? That's a really catchy little title there. So Far, So Good by Gil Scott-Heron. The poetry of Gil Scott-Heron. So far, so good. Now let's see what he's talking about with the New Deal. Because right about now, we could use a new deal. We could even use an old deal. For real. Any kind of deal. Something. So let's see what we got. Oh, let me make sure to put on my glasses because this type here is pretty small. And once I get started, I'm going to be ripping right on through this one right here. The New Deal. Let's see what we got. I have believed in my convictions and been convicted for my beliefs. I've been conned by the Constitution and harassed by the police. I have been billed for the Bill of Rights as though I'd done something wrong. I've been a special amendment for what included me all along. Like, quote unquote, all men are created equal, end quote. No amendment needed there. I've contributed in every field, including cotton from Sunset Strip to Washington Square back during the nonviolent era. I was the only one who was nonviolent. Come to think of it, there was no non-violence because too many rednecks had guns. There seems to have been this pattern that took a long time to pick up on, but all black leaders who dared to stand up was in jail, in the courtroom, or gone. Picked up indiscriminately by the shock troops of discrimination to end up in jails or tied up in trials. While dirty tricks soured the nation, I've been hoodwinked by professional hoods. My ego had happened to me. Just keep things cool, we've been told. And keep the people out of the streets, they kept repeating. We'll settle all this at the conference table. You leave everything to me. Which brings me back to my convictions and being convicted for my beliefs, because I believe these smiles and three-piece suits with gracious liberal demeanor took our movement off the streets and took us to the cleaners. In other words, we led up the pressure, and that was all part of their plan. And every day we allow to slip through our fingers is playing right into their hands. And if all that sounds just all a little bit too familiar, I want you to keep in mind that that poem is from the previous century. It was not even written in the 21st century. So we've had 20 more years of experiences just like this. So when you hear someone like AG, Attorney General Barr, start talking about stuff all up in the stars, I just want you to remember that the problem we've been having half the time has been in our cars. If y'all remember driving while black, we ain't never caught no slack for driving around while black. So just make note of that little fact. Now, the getting back to the legend of Queen Calafia. We started yesterday. We read through our root. We were reading through Our Roots Run Deep. I think I'm gonna read a little bit more from Our Roots Run Deep. Yeah, I'm gonna read a little bit more from this one here from Our Roots Run Deep. Yeah, I only got another like a page and a half or so, 2 pages, not more than 2 pages. So we'll read that because it relates to the present as always. Okay. Queen Calafia, as I said yesterday, was ambitious and courageous. She was not a docile heathen ruler awaiting conquest by European explorers. She was a fierce warrior who led a nation of very self-reliant women, so self-reliant that they trained huge birds called griffins to eat any man. After men were used for breeding, they were fed to the griffins. Male children were slaughtered, and only the girls were kept. The queen, seeking new worlds to conquer, set sail in a vast fleet with 500 griffins to take on the Christians seeking to hold Constantinople, a feat roughly comparable in scope to the U.S. Armada that sailed into the Persian Gulf War of the 1990s. There she joined 2 Ottoman sheikhs in an attack on the city. The climax of the story comes when she takes on the English heroes. So just to clarify there, it appears from what I'm reading here that she was fighting on the side of the Muslims. Because that's what, when you say Ottoman sheikhs, those are Muslims. The climax of the story comes when she takes on the English heroes, Amadis of Gaul and his son Esplandian, in sword to sword, shield to shield, lance to lance, arm in arm combat. Fortunately for the two, the writer was on their side. They bested Califia, converted her to Christianity, and gave her a name to serve as her king. She then sailed back to her island nation. Her defeat was made necessary by the ideas of the times. Now, I read that part yesterday. I'm rereading that part because I thought it needed to be reread. Hey, Quaco, I see you out there, bro. Okay. In the crescendo of battle, Califia asked Amadis why he is not fighting more vigorously. He responds that it is beneath his dignity as a knight to strike a woman. Amadis, it will be observed here, does not condescend to use his sword against a woman. And this is not from tenderness, but from contempt. For when the queen saw that he only took the broken truncheon of his lance to her, she fairly asked him why. How is this, Amadis? She said. Do you consider my force so slight that you think to conquer me with sticks? And he said to her, Queen, I've always been in the habit of serving women and aiding them. And as you are a woman, if I should use any weapon against you, I should deserve to lose all the honors I have ever gained. What then, said the queen, do you rank me among? Do you rank me among them? You shall see. This story, end quote, that was a quote. This story was published at a time when women in Europe and European nations had no rights at all. The idea of glorifying her as a woman of extraordinary courage and fighting skill ran counter to the doctrine of male supremacy. Her majesty and status also contradicted the emergent body of literature branding people of color, quote unquote, as uncivilized heathens only fit to be enslaved. However, the fact of the origin of the state's name has been recognized at least since the Civil War. I'm going back here just a second. Just want to go back to this part right here. Her Majesty and status also contradicted the emerging body of literature, branding people of color as uncivilized heathens, only fit to be enslaved. Who are these people of color they're talking about? Because they ain't talking about the Chinese, because they never really enslaved them. I do believe they're talking about black folks. So just a note there about people of color. What color are those people we're talking about? People seem to not want to talk about that, but I'm mentioning it here. However, the fact of the origin of the state's name has been recognized at least since the Civil War in such books as California Place Names and the Encyclopedia Britannica, for what it's worth. It clearly states the origin of the name. Writer Edward Everett Hale pointed out in 1862 the probable connection between the name of the utopian island of California and the name of the state by showing that its location was near the 7 cities of Cibola, which were reputedly in New Mexico. When the Mark Hopkins Hotel was built in San Francisco, its builders commissioned 2 of the state's greatest living artists, Maynard Dixon and Frank von Sloan, to create a set of 9 murals depicting the founding of the state. Those murals, by the way, are still there in the Mark Hopkins International Hotel on the top of Nob Hill in San Francisco. You can go there right now and check it out if you're in the neighborhood. The centerpiece mural in the Room of the Dons is a lush portrait of Queen Calafia protected by 2 of her warriors. In 3 other murals, Calafia's warriors are featured, greeting European explorers at the water's edge, such as Sir Francis Drake, the former European boogeyman. Mothers used to scare their children almost to scare the bejeebus out of their children by saying Francis Drake was going to get you. The murals were the sensation of the hotel's grand opening in 1926. They were described in newspaper accounts as the most exquisite murals since Michelangelo and the Sistine Chapel. Yet the story has remained hidden from the great mass of Californians. It's pretty common knowledge among scholars of medieval literature, said Hendricks, but that part of history has been kept away from the elementary and secondary levels where it's really important. What you have in the textbooks is a history of the moment that they are constructed, says Hendricks. Most of the people who write these books are people who don't take classes in literature per se, and they don't know these things exist. Hey, all right, John, I see you there, bro. For young students, particularly black students, it means they will never see the dream that gives California its name, she adds. So you have a group of children thinking that their history starts with slavery. That has a powerful impact on their sense of self-esteem, and that's what we're talking about. The hidden history of California does not stop with the legend of Queen Calafia. Californians of African descent were integrally involved in the early settlement. 60% of the 60%, not 50, not 40, 60% of the original founders of Los Angeles were of African descent, and similar percentages were present at the founding of San Jose and Santa Monica. During Spanish and Mexican rule, blacks served as governors of the province on 4 different occasions. I'm a 3rd-generation Californian, said Hendricks, but I had no idea of those facts until I got to the university level. If you really look back through the history, you will see that all non-whites, quote unquote, have been left out. And as the year 2000 approaches, California will be a state where the majority of people will be, quote unquote, non-white, concludes Hendricks. If we work together, we can begin to demand that the history be rewritten to tell the truth about everyone's contributions. And as a matter of fact, in the year 2020, what he just said there is absolutely fact. The majority in California is no longer white. The majority is Hispanic. So, enough said. Apparently, it's the reconquista in action, meaning the reconquest of California by its former residents the Mexicans from down south, from the Baja California part. They've come all up into Alta California, which is the word originally used for the part of California that we know, and about taking it over. And that's for real. Okay, so on tomorrow, we're going to dig a little deeper into this legend of Queen Calafia and the origins of the legend. And that's going to take us all the way black to Africa. So we're going black to Africa tomorrow. Be here or miss out entirely. No, not entirely, because it'll be recorded. Meanwhile, we are in the midst of our fall fundraising campaign. We're calling it 2020. So we're trying to raise 20,000 by September 20th, 2020. So that's why we're calling it 2020. 20,000 by September 20, 2020. You can be a part of this effort. It's very easy. All you have to do is just click on the links right below this post if you're on Facebook, and you'll see you can make a contribution right there. You can make a one-time contribution or a recurring contribution. You can go either way. We need these funds so that we can up our game, because anything else is going to be lame. We want to do a lot more for the youth in terms of their education, not just in terms of what we're broadcasting here. We want to give them a way to pick it up. We want to be able to give away laptops, Chromebooks, okay, some kind of computerized devices that the children can use to access not only their lessons online from the public schools, but the lessons online from right here at Black Facts Headquarters Central. This is something that we really feel strongly about and we really need to do. If you've got a laptop out there, a Chromebook you're not using, please go ahead, package it up and send it to us. Ship it to us. If it's just not being used, it's sitting around the house, send it to us. We'll do with it what we can. Our address, by the way, is 437 Silver Meadows Boulevard, Kent, Ohio. Just send it to Black Facts, BLAKFACTS. But in the meanwhile, you can make a monetary donation right below, and you can even set up your own little campaign, a fundraising campaign in our name right there on Facebook. I'm focusing on Facebook right now as opposed to YouTube, because I haven't been able to do that with YouTube yet, but we're working on it. And the more donations we get, the easier it's going to be for us to set this up, not only on YouTube, but on our website as well. Okay? We need to get and move forward. We see the powers that be are not going to help to make us free. The only ones who can free us is ourselves. All right. Enough of that. I'm getting off my soapbox. My time is up, and I'm going to let you go ahead on with your day. Peace out. We'll be black here tonight at 9 o'clock with our children's stories. And of course, we will be black here tomorrow for more of Doc Ock at noon and 9.